Good evening and welcome. Tonight, House of Representatives demands suspension of the new policy on cash withdrawals, invites the CBN Governor, Godwin Emefiele, for explanation. The Apex Bank boss says decision is aimed at strengthening the economy. Senate Committee on Special Duties frowns on federal government's plan to acquire loans to fund the National Social Investment Program. Says funding consumption rather than capital projects is worrisome. The Department of State Services gives NNPCL and oil marketers 48 hours to end fuel crisis in the country. Says lingering scarcity of the product is presenting security concerns.
On Business News tonight, Central Bank of Nigeria and other stakeholders endorse bill to amend the NDIC Act 2006, currently before the National Assembly.
And on sports news tonight, Brazil is set for a showdown with Croatia, while Argentina prepares to face the Netherlands as the last 8 of the 20 on Friday.
And from the nation's capital, federal government announces plan to open the second Niger Bridge for 30 days from December the 15th, 2022, to ease traffic for travelers during the Yuletide.
And in international news from London, the US and Russia have exchanged jailed US basketball star Brittany Griner for the notorious arms dealer Victor Bout, held in an American prison for 12 years.
It appears the last has not been heard about the central bank's new policy on cash withdrawals in the country. The House of Representatives is demanding the immediate suspension of the initiative. The lawmakers have also summoned the CBN Governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, over the new policy, which is scheduled to take effect from January 9th, 2023. The resolution was reached during a plenary session following the adoption of a motion of urgent public importance sponsored by a lawmaker from Jigawa, Honorable Aliu Magaji.
It's the last plenary session of the week in the House of Representatives, and the latest policy of the Central Bank of Nigeria is utmost on the mind of the lawmakers.
Federal Government of Nigeria Power Company budget.
Soon as the presiding officer calls the chamber to order, a member raises a point of urgent national importance.
It bothers whoever is sitting in this place, because most of them are from rural areas. Everything is being done in naira and cash, and somebody will wake up, it's like he owns this country, and make a policy that will start tomorrow. No consultation. People are forgetting that 80 or 90% of the people are not in rural areas. So we must do something to save the situation.
Lawmakers from both sides of the divide express divergent views on the policy.
More than 70% of our communities in this country do not have banking system. Few states, Lagos, Rivers, Kano, Delta probably might boast of about 70 to 75% coverage in banking system. Yet the CBN under Almighty Emefiele woke up and introduced this very heartless, as far as I'm concerned, decision.
If you want to stop banditry, make it impossible for them to have cash.
So you're speaking against the motion?
There shouldn't be cash available for them. That's one. Two, we passed the law on this floor. It's our law. The fact that CBN all this while had been sleeping and never went into their law, the law passed, and ensured that they follow it to the letter, didn't mean that it wasn't there. The law is there. They are only now waking up and now implementing what we sent out to them.
The action of the lawmakers is coming a day after some senators had raised concern over the policy. The Senate had proposed to hold a debate on the policy on Tuesday, December 13, 2022. Before putting the motion to question, the Speaker of the House proposed a joint session with the Senate on the issue.
I think you will allow me to speak to the Senate President and see whether, in compliance with the Act, we can have a joint session. And this is important enough.
While the lawmakers are planning to meet Mr. Emefiele on Thursday, December 15, 2022, they also raised questions on the source of funding for printing the new currencies.
The CBN Governor, Godwin Emefiele, says the new Naira notes have already been disbursed to the various commercial banks and expects that banks would begin distribution to the general public. Mr. Emefiele made the clarification today after a visit to the president in his country home in Daura, Katsina State, reacting to dissenting voices from the National Assembly and the public over the policy. Mr. Emefiele explained that the limitation was not intended to hurt anyone, but to strengthen the nation's economy.
Only yesterday, the new currency has now reached the banks, and that we expect that the banks will begin to distribute those currencies to the members of the public who are their customers, and to assure the president that things are going on well about the currency, as well as issues bordering on the cashless policy. The Senate of the Federal Republic is National Assembly. They are a legislative arm of the government, and from time to time, we brief them about what is happening, about our policies, and I'm aware that they have asked for some briefings, and we will brief them. But I think it's important for me to say that the cashless policy started in 2012, okay? But at almost 3 to 4 occasions, we've had to step down the policy because we felt that there is a need for us to prepare ourselves and deepen our payment system infrastructure in Nigeria. Between 2012 and now 2022, almost or about 10 years, we believe that a lot of electronic channels have been put in place that would aid people in making banking, conducting banking and financial services transactions in Nigeria. We will be reviewing from time to time how this is working, because I cannot say that we are going to be rigid, but it is not to say that we will reverse. It is not to say that we will change timing, but whether it is about tweaking some amounts to be a little bit higher or a little bit lower and all the rest of them, we will do so because we are humans, want to make sure that we make life good for our people.
Away from the legislature, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Lucky Irabor, says security agencies and the military are under pressure to compromise elections through various financial inducements. Speaking during the ministerial weekly briefing today, the defense chief also provided updates on the strides made in the fight against insurgency and banditry, explained the military personnel are being trained to follow codified rules of engagement before, during and after the elections. He debunked a report by Reuters news agency which accused the military of carrying out over 10,000 illegal abortions on female victims of the war in the northeast. Our State House correspondent, Gloria Omezuke, reports.
Issues of insurgency, terrorism and crude oil theft set the tone for engagement at the 61st Ministerial Weekly Briefing anchored by the Chief of Defense Staff, General Lucky Irabor, in the State House. Against the backdrop of the upcoming elections, the CDS affirms that indeed the military and security agencies get financial inducements to compromise, but they are working assiduously against it.
There will always be pressure from all quarters, wanting to induce security forces, not just the military security forces, the police. That's what criminal enterprise is all about. That is what something that is wrong is all about. But what makes the difference is the professional approach to dealing with those issues, and that's what the military we are committed to doing. That's the reason why we have ramped up our training in that regard. Sensitization, a lot of engagement across the formations and units is being undertaken.
He further reacted to allegations leveled against the military by an international news media, accusing it of running an illegal abortion program on female victims of the Boko Haram insurgency.
I am also aware that, of course, the war economy has affected a good number of people, and so that now that we are making progress, they think that status quo ante, we need to return to it. So those inanities by Reuters, in any case, you said you would interview 33 women over a period of how many years, 2013 to date. And then you were able to conclude, what kind of extrapolation is that? So, but again, I'm not going to be deterred, and I don't think that any of my officers and men are deterred.
He also revisited the alleged Lekki Tollgate massacre in 2020.
What will be the interest of the military to want to kill their own kids and kin? And there is no single unit of formation where you have only a group of soldiers coming from a particular part of the country.
Reeling out achievements, the Chief of Defense Staff revealed that 300,000 persons have been freed from the hands of abductors since 2016, while nearly 300 hand-dug wells used to siphon petroleum products have been discovered. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
For weeks now, motorists in Lagos and some other cities in the country have been having difficulty purchasing petrol due to the scarcity and high prices of the product. But the federal government is assuring that the crisis, which it attributes to supply disruption, will begin to dissipate in a matter of days. That's coming from the chief executive of the Nigeria Upstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulator, Mr. Farouk Ahmed, who led a team of officials to some petrol reception depots in Apapa, Lagos.
The struggle, long queues, brisk business by jerrycan merchants, and price distortion has exacerbated an already difficult situation of premium motor spirit PMS, popularly called petrol. Whilst the federal government continues to keep assurances in high esteem, this may have prompted the authority's chief executive of the Nigeria Midstream Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, Mr. Farouk Ahmed, to visit Lagos to ascertain that every molecule claimed is actually available. He's on a tour of the depots that receive imported petroleum products and does the honors of interrogating the operators himself.
In terms of truckload out, your opening stock? We have an opening stock of about 28 million liters. Unlike last week, the stock situation has drastically improved. I can say last week, the supply was a bit challengeful. As we are today, even the number of ships at the Apapa has increased. It has become like 3 ships in the jetty now. And we are expecting 2 more to come. So in the days to come, we feel that this 28 million stock will be improved to like 50-55 million. And our truck out also has been steady for the last couple of days. We have been doing 5 million liters per day. And we expect this trend to continue for the next 1 week.
When did you commence loading? I will commence around after 7, like 15 minutes after 7. Okay. Yes, okay. And we are loading till maybe 7. Okay, once it's safe.
Approximately how many trucks do you load a day?
When you have 65, 70.
Okay.
We asked him how the authority is hoping to deal with the issues around distribution and expanding the scope to IPMAN members.
Another area that we are looking at is to work with NNPC to say that part of those volumes that they are given to Mauman or Dapman should continue. However, the volume from NNPC's throughput, I think we should give more emphasis to allocating it to the IPMAN.
With all the volumes being pumped out, what is the stock levels to mitigate the high demand?
First of all, offshore, we can confirm that we have sufficient import vessels, over 20 days sufficiency. And the land, we have over 10 days, 11 days sufficiency, and of course, on the shuttle vessels. But what is important is to translate that offshore on land, and that's the key.
In recent years, the Utah season has become a measure stick for how government performs in terms of petrol availability.
In part 2 after the break, the DSS says lingering scarcity of petroleum products has presented security concerns, gives NNPCL and oil marketers 48 hours to end the crisis in the country. That's in a moment. Do join us again. Welcome back. If it has joined us watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. Here's a reminder of our top stories. House of Representatives demands suspension of new policy on cash withdrawals, invites the CBN Governor, Godwin Emefiele, for explanation. The Apex Bank boss says decision is aimed at strengthening the economy. Senate Committee on Special Duties frowns on federal government's plan to acquire loans to fund National Social Investment Program. Says funding consumption rather than capital projects is worrisome. The Department of State Services gives NNPCL and oil marketers 48 hours to end fuel crisis in the country. Says lingering scarcity of the product is presenting security concerns. And the U.S. and Russia exchange jailed U.S. basketball star Brittney Griner for notorious arms dealer Victor Bout, held in an American prison for 12 years. The Department of State Services has given oil marketers and other stakeholders, including the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, 48 hours to make petrol available to Nigerians ahead of the Yuletide. Spokesperson for the service, Dr. Peter Afunaya, announced the directive of the DSS while briefing journalists on the outcome of a closed-door meeting with stakeholders in the petroleum sector held at the DSS headquarters in Abuja. According to him, the challenge of fuel scarcity has assumed a dimension of national security, and that failure to comply with the directive, the DSS says, will activate operations across the country.
The stakeholder meeting resolved, and we are insistent on such resolution that the fuel distribution system must improve, or the challenges must be completely eliminated in the next 48 hours. We made it very clear that the period of grace we will give, within this period, we are finding solutions to this economic challenge, is 48 hours. And that after 48 hours, we will, as a matter of urgency, carry out operations across the country, and we wouldn't mind whose ox is cut in the process of executing such project or such operation if any person, group of persons, individuals, or any person, as a matter of fact, or company decides to be obstructive to the operation of easing of petroleum distribution in the country. And we sounded a clear note of warning to the marketers, to other stakeholders, and every other person who is involved in this process, that we will not, it wouldn't be business as usual.
Back to the National Assembly, the Senate Committee on Special Duties is aghast that the federal government is acquiring loans to fund the National Social Investment Program, the NSIP. The committee says it is worrisome that the country is getting loans to fund consumption rather than capital projects. It made its feelings known during a meeting with the Minister of Finance, Mrs. Zainab Ahmed, at the National Assembly today. Our correspondent, Linda Kigbe, reports.
The Finance Minister is before the Senate Committee on Special Duties to explain the insertion of 206 billion naira in the 2023 budget of the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. The Humanitarian Minister, Mrs. Sadiya Farouk, had told the committee during her budget defense session in November that she needed further clarification from the Minister of Finance on a sum of 206 billion naira in her ministry's budget. At Thursday's meeting, the Finance Minister explained that the amount was approved by the Federal Executive Council, but the error was in the manner it was captured in the ministry's budget.
The National Social Safety Nets project, which sits in the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development. This project was correctly described in the submission that went to the Budget Office from the department in the ministry, but regrettably, in inputting the submission, a wrong budget code was selected, and this ended up having the project described as purchase of security equipment in the GIFMIS system.
She further explains that the funds are bilateral and multilateral loans captured in the budget of the Humanitarian Ministry for the National Social Investment Program. But lawmakers are uneasy at the procurement of loans to fund the program.
The loans for these social investments, they are consumption in nature. They don't seem to me as they are capital in nature. So we are borrowing to consume, although we're investing in the social framework.
Yes, this is a consumption loan, but the Fiscal Responsibility Act says you can borrow for projects as well as for human capital development.
The committee chairman questions the minister on the sustainability of these loans.
I'm just making, comments, so that we reflect over it, whether, there's an option, rather than borrowing to fund the social, investment program. Why can't we develop a local source of funding?
My personal view, and this is not as Minister of Finance, is no, is not sustainable. And we do hope to be able to exit this. And how do we exit it? By increasing our revenue so that government can use its revenue to provide interventions like this.
Committee members call for the swift passage of the National Social Investment Bill to ensure proper scrutiny of loans used for the program. Linda Akibi, Channels Television News.
We do apologize for the abruptness of that report. We'll bring it to you as soon as we can. Let's go to Abuja now, where Gloria Mezoke is standing by with more on the news at 10. Hi, Gloria.
Thank you, Amarachi. Well, we begin with some cheery news. Motorists and travelers headed towards the eastern part of the country this Yuletide may not experience the usual gridlock as the bridge crossing between Delta and Anambra State this year. Well, this is because the federal government says a second Niger Bridge will be opened, albeit temporarily, for 30 days from December the 15th, 2022. The Minister of Works and Housing, Mr. Babatunde Fashola, made this known at a meeting with stakeholders on the Ember Months program in Abuja. He, however, noted that heavy trucks will not be allowed to ply the road within the period.
As I've told you in press briefings, we have completed work on the bridge. So if you go there now, you can walk from one end of the bridge to the other. You can drive a car from one end of the bridge to the other. But the connecting road that links that bridge to the main highway is what we want to finish. That has not finished. The rains delayed us. The stop work order on Mondays in that part of the country also delayed us. So it will be open for traffic going from the west to the east from the 15th of December, this year, until the 15th of January next year. Let me be clear again, we haven't finished construction work, but we will open it for people to use to relieve the pressure on the one bridge so that you have two bridges. It will not be available for heavy-duty trucks. It will only be small vehicles for now until we finish our work. On the 15th of January, we will reverse that movement for those coming now, leaving the east and going back west.
The residents of the chairman of the People's Democratic Party's Presidential Campaign Council in Rivers State, Senator Lee Mayeba, came under attack today by persons suspected to be political thugs. The attackers were said to have invaded the GRA residence of the former senator from a nearby street, shooting sporadically at his residence, and eventually broke into his compound. Although the police are yet to comment on the issue, the attackers reportedly destroyed about 5 cars, including a Jeep. Senator Mayeba was not in the house at the time of the incident.
My happiness was that the door was a protective door that they could not push through. If not, nobody knows what they would have done. My senior brother was somewhere here where they met him at the gym and descended on him and brought out a gun and showed him the gun. This was meant for your brother, not you. If we have seen your brother, one bullet would have solved his problem with Atiku and Wike today. It's the so. And so when words like that come out from a rampaging thug, you'll see some months ago, around July, I raised an alarm that there was an attempt to kill me. And it was discussed in Government House. And he was alleged that I will be attacked by thugs and I will be killed like if he was in a thuggery attack. That has happened today. My luck is that I was not home. I just stepped out to go visit my mother-in-law. It's not up to 5 minutes I left here, I started hearing the story. But before I left here, you can see that there was build-up of thugs from the beginning of the street to the end of the street. And when I was driving out, I can see strange boys. You know, when boys are gathering. And the result is what you saw. They pushed down the gate, shoot gun, overpower the security man, tie him up, took his phone, ransack everywhere, can't get to the door, saw my brother in the gym, descended on him.
Meanwhile, the Rivers State government has challenged Senator Meba to help the police investigate and unravel those who launched the attack on his Port Harcourt home. The State Commissioner for Information and Communications, Mr. Chris Finebone, in a statement explained that the former senator is in the best position to help the police since he claimed to have received a call from a man who notified him of the attack. He said while it is not strange to find politicians stage high-level melodrama to either cover up their tracks or muddle up waters to hoodwink the public for political reasons, this River State government, working with security agencies, will continue to render possible assistance to them. This, he says, is to ensure safety of life and property in the state. Mr. Finebone also acknowledged that there have been isolated reports suggesting that some persons are purportedly being physically molested for political reasons. He, however, tasked security agencies to exercise the highest level of diligence and discreetness in their work to arrive at a credible conclusion. The Commissioner for Housing and Urban Development, Mr. Ekpe Ogbu, has been narrating his ordeal after being freed by his kidnappers. He said his abductors were armed herdsmen who told him that they were on a mission to kill and not kidnap for ransom, and that Benue State will fall to them. He stated this when Governor Samuel Otom visited him at his residence in Makurdi.
They told me that their mission is not to demand for ransom. Their mission is to kill me. That they constantly use this same word, that they are commissioned to kill. Not about money. And that whether we like it or not, that they are not going to spare us. I thought it was just a threat to prompt response, but it was not. Because it got to a point that it was only the grace of God that spared our life.
Governor Otom, on his part, urged Benue communities to rise and chase both kidnappers and criminals out of the state's forest.
There is no way we can add value to development when we have kidnappers all over the place terrorizing our communities. By coming to government and kidnapping a government official, it's a clear indication that kidnappers have declared war on us. And we government we have declared war on them, and I'm calling on our communities to rise up and support government to declare war on kidnappers and armed robbers in Benue State.
Well, still ahead on the news at 10, Central Bank of Nigeria and other stakeholders endorse bill to amend the NDIC Act 2006, currently before the National Assembly. That's in business news. You'll join us again.
Welcome back. In Kaduna State, the government says troops of the Nigerian army have killed 9 bandits during a fierce gun battle in some locations in Giwa local government area. According to the Kaduna State Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs, Samuel Arwan, the troops also cleared some camps and rescued women and children who were kidnapped and held hostage by the bandits inside the forest. The troops were said to have cleared a bandit camp near a river around Rafin Sarki and neutralized 5 bandits in the vicinity, while many others fled. In another leg of the operation, the troops and special forces cleared a hideout around Galadimawa Forest, where 4 bandits were neutralized and more than a dozen kidnapped women and children were rescued by the troops. 5 locally made firearms, 5 rounds of ammunition, and other items were said to have been recovered following the encounter. The Imo State government has signed a memorandum of understanding with the Nigerian Navy for the development and dredging of the Urashi River to the sea. Commending the federal government for this development during the signing of the deal, Governor Hope Uzodimma said that this will open up the waterways in the state, which will allow socio-economic activities to thrive.
We conceived this idea, occasioned by circumstances arising from crude oil theft, banditry, and other forms of criminality. And indeed, when we conceived the idea, the Nigerian Navy bought into it. And in the wisdom of the Mr. President, he started by first locating a naval base in Oguta to ensure security. And today, we have executed this memorandum of understanding, be able to open up the access to the sea. Access to the sea is access to life. And access to life, good life, is access to good economy. Imo State indeed has started receiving additional blessings, the bounties of nature endowed here by Almighty God.
Meanwhile, the Group Managing Director and Chief Executive of the Nigerian Navy Holding Limited, Rear Admiral Silrianda Lassa, says the project will take off after the completion of the dredging of the water channels from Lokoja in Kogi State to Burutu in Delta State up to the sea.
The Chief of Naval Staff indeed expresses his appreciation for the support given to the commander of the Navy base, Oguta, and by extension too, the support that is always given to our school here at Oworenta. The cordial relationship enjoyed by the good people of this state with the base is also what mentioning. The Chief of Naval Staff has indeed said that he will continue to reciprocate this kind of gesture in whatever way that is within his reach.
River State Governor Nyesom Wike has assured that politics, especially the campaigns for next year's elections, will not distract him from carrying out his governance duties. The governor says this is the flag-off of the construction of 7 streets in Rumigbo, an urban settlement in Obiakpo local government area of the state. The ceremony was performed by the former Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Senator Heineken Lokobiri, who described the infrastructure drive in River State as unprecedented.
Governor of River State, His Excellency Nyesom Wike, CON, GSSRS Life Venture.
After almost 4 weeks of project's inauguration and flag-off, Governor Nyesom Wike of River State is hosting the former Minister of State for Agriculture and Rural Development, Heineken Lokobiri, to flag off the construction of 17 streets within the metropolis of Rumigbo in Obiakpo local government area. Totaling 8.3 kilometers long, the streets are marked for completion by the state government in the next 5 months, having mobilized the contractor to site about a month ago. The special guest describes Wike's infrastructure delivery agenda as unprecedented.
In your first term, His Excellency the Vice President of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, came to River State and you were conducting him around different projects. He got tired and he called you Mr. Project. We thought that that would have been the end of projects in River State. For your second term is even more. To an extent that it compelled President Muhammad Buhari to crown you as the infrastructure king of Nigeria.
Although his tenure is winding down and the electioneering for next year's election is at its peak, Governor Wike says politics cannot distract him from governance.
Our tenure will expire on 29th of May 2023. All the communities that are within our jurisdiction will do all we can to make sure we bring development to the area.
One more challenge confronting this populated urban settlement is flash flooding, and Governor Wike assures them of drastic action.
Where to take the water to? It's been a big problem for us. And so what I've decided to do, so whoever has it, whether you sold it or whatever, government for public interest, we're acquiring that land to channel the whole water, this Obiwali Road.
He uses the opportunity to present the candidates of the People's Democratic Party for next year's election, urging them in his Ikwere language to vote for the candidates at the state level.
So Yamega represent. Kabu governor can hear me vote for. Amagamagada. Kabu governor can hear me vote for.
In the meantime, residents of rural communities in Akwa Ibom State say the critical interventions by the Niger Delta Development Commission in the state have opened up many of the areas for economic and social activities. According to them, the roads have linked the rural communities to urban centers, thereby facilitating easy movement of goods, especially farm produce. I spoke with journalists during a media tour of the NDDC projects in Akwa Ibom State.
The Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, is prioritizing road construction in Akwa Ibom State as a way of industrializing rural communities in line with the agency's mandate. Of the over 15 projects executed by the NDDC so far, 12 are roads constructed in suburb communities. From Uyo, the state capital, to Ikono, Okobo, and Ikolabasi are footprints of the NDDC's road projects, which this resident of Uyo says have opened up the area for a boom in economic and social activities.
Because this place is more terrible, as some visitors, people from different places have decided to come in here and rent shops.
At Ibiakun Tugokbo community in Ikono local government area, where the 1.4-kilometer Mbiabong-Ikonofyong internal network of roads have been constructed with drainage channels, the residents commend the commission for tackling flooding and creating major access to adjoining communities.
Na bush track before they construct the road, and the road good now. The airports well because of raining season, and the quarter where they come put, the airports well.
For residents of Amamong community in Okobo local government area, the intervention of the commission has improved mobility of goods, particularly farm produce, and reduced the risk of road accidents.
I really appreciate them for them to do this race for us to arrive safely.
It was very, very terrible, and they could not even work on it.
The residents, however, call for the construction and completion of more road projects and other amenities in Akwa Ibom State.
We still need more. There are some of the abandoned roads here that need to be done. If I take you around, you can see some of the abandoned roads in this village that was undertaken by NDDC. So we want them to come and complete those roads.
Besides rural roads, the NDDC has also constructed internal roads within the University of Uyo and erected a prototype 1,050-bed space hostel with recreational facilities to ease accommodation challenge on campus. At the Police Mobile Force Barracks in Uyo, the NDDC has completed the construction of internal roads, which was recently commissioned by the Inspector General of Police, Usman Alkali Baba. Akwa Ibom communities laud the NDDC for opening up rural areas through road projects.
Time for business news now. Here's Melinda Akilami.
Many thanks, Amarachi. Welcome to Business News. Stakeholders in Nigeria's financial sector, such as the Central Bank, the National Insurance Commission, and many others, have endorsed a bill to amend the Nigeria Deposit Insurance Corporation (NDIC) Act 2006, which is currently before the National Assembly. According to a statement released by the NDIC, the bills seek to strengthen the capacity of the corporation to contribute more effectively and efficiently to the stability of the financial system in line with global best practices. The sponsor of the bill, Senator Uba Sani, says rapid economic and technological changes in the financial landscape have made the 1988 NDIC Act amendment imperative since the last repeal and reenactment in 2006. Nigeria's market share of African goods export has been placed at about 12%, while the country is less than 5% in goods import. However, the cost of doing business may be an obstacle in expanding this market share in its implementation. This was a major point of conversation at the AFCFTA Implementation Strategy Validation Committee, organized by its National Action Committee in Lagos. The Senior Advisor, African Trade Policy Center of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, who was at the meeting, is asking that the strategy be an all-inclusive one for proper effectiveness. Meanwhile, the Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission is canvassing the support of ministries, departments, and agencies in shoring up the nation's investment base. Speaking at a meeting with representatives from the MDAs in the nation's capital, the Executive Secretary of the Commission, Mrs. Saratu Umar, explains that the interagency cooperation will go a long way in handling investment complaints that may arise as investors harness the investment opportunities in the country.
Going forward, at the right time, not today, of course, establish inter-MDA cooperation units to address differences in handling investor complaints or even how to work better as players in public service that are there to service the investment ecosystem. Also, we aim that this interaction and continuous interaction, because it's not just about today, is to continue it even when we're back in our offices. It would help in attracting investments into different sectors of the economy to facilitate, of course, import substitution, export generation, and so on and so forth. Because if we are able, as a country, to have investments that would ensure we produce what we consume, then we conserve forex. And if we are also able to facilitate more exports, we'll generate forex. And we would agree that the play of both import substitution and foreign exchange generation would play a very critical role in stabilizing the Naira and, of course, enhance the value of the Naira.
Now let's take a look at what's happening at the equities market. Not a green day. The bull run has ended for now as investors took profit in MTN Nigeria. John Mekwa tells us more.
Thank you so much. Welcome to the Stock Market Report. Leading the market sentiment from the premium board, MTN Nigeria is the market mover today. After trading 5.6 million in volume, it shed 2.27%, which is 5 naira off its share price to close at 215 naira, and that dragged it out. That's the first time this week. With the bear comes red on the all-share index, down at almost the same percentage it gained yesterday, 0.13% today at 48,365.14. And with that is a loss from the market value of 33 billion. That's the same thing it gained yesterday. Now let's see the sectors. Consumers counter lost that shine of yesterday, and Honeywell, which was one major player yesterday, also dragged that counter down today, even though it's marginal, 0.01%. Banking recovered. Zenith Bank, UBA, they were down yesterday. Today, they recovered and brought that counter up 0.46%. Industrial goods, it's in the negative 0.08%. It's a negative market, but it's still mixed, and so we can still stay hopeful and see what investors will do tomorrow. That's the stock market report. Amini John Mekwa is back to you.
That's business news. It's back to you, Amarachi.
Thanks a lot, Melinda. The U.S. and Russia may not agree on Russia's special military operation in Ukraine. At least they have agreed on the fate of female basketballer Brittany Griner. Griner was freed thanks to a prisoner exchange agreed by leaders of both countries for notorious Russian arms dealer Victor Bout, who had been held in an American prison for 12 years. Simon Pusey has more in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The US and Russia have exchanged jailed US basketball star Brittany Griner for the notorious arms dealer Victor Bout, held in an American prison for 12 years. President Joe Biden said Griner was safe and on a plane home from the United Arab Emirates. Griner was arrested at a Moscow airport in February for possessing cannabis oil and last month sent to a penal colony. The Biden administration proposed a prisoner exchange last July, aware Moscow had long sought Bout's release.
Good morning, folks, and it is a good morning. Moments ago, standing together with her wife Sherelle in the Oval Office, I spoke with Brittany Griner. She's safe, she's on a plane, she's on her way home. After months of being unjustly detained in Russia, held under intolerable circumstances. Brittany will soon be back in the arms of her loved ones, and she should have been there all along.
Iran has announced the first execution of a protester convicted over the recent anti-government unrest. Mohsen Shekhari was hanged on Thursday morning after being found guilty by a revolutionary court of enmity against God. He was accused of being a rioter who blocked a main road in Tehran in September and wounded a member of a paramilitary force with a machete. A UN investigation has found that at least 131 civilians in the Democratic Republic of Congo died in a November attack by the M23 rebel group. The UN report said the massacre took place in 2 villages in the Rutsuhuru district of the eastern North Kivu province. Investigators said the attack appeared to be a reprisal for a current government offensive on the rebels. M23 denied the massacre, blaming stray bullets for just 8 deaths. Peru has sworn in a new president after a day of political drama that saw leftist leader Pedro Castillo arrested after his ousting from office in an impeachment. Hours after he was ousted, his deputy Dina Boluarte was appointed the new president. Pedro Castillo, seen here in the middle, is in police custody facing likely charges of rebellion. Facing an impeachment vote by the opposition-controlled Congress, he was dissolving the legislative body. Congress defied him, voted overwhelmingly to remove him from office, and his bodyguards stopped him from seeking refuge at an embassy. A leading climate analyst has said that Britain's decision to approve a new deep coal mine will damage its environmental credibility worldwide. It's after the UK granted permission to a mining operation seeking to extract coking coal, the first coal mine approved in Britain in decades. The decision has drawn criticism from opponents who say it will hinder climate targets.
We've been urging other countries across the world to give up coal when we were hosts at COP26 and last month at COP27. And now we've changed our minds on coal and decided that we want to open new coal mines. So it damages our credibility on climate leadership globally. And many other countries might be looking at us and saying they're hypocrites for telling us to do one thing and then doing another themselves.
Singer Celine Dion has revealed she has been diagnosed with a rare neurological disorder called stiff person syndrome and will not be ready to restart her European tour in spring 2023.
I've been dealing with problems with my health.
The Canadian singer first apologised to her 5.2 million Instagram followers in a video message for taking so long to reach out to you, and that she was ready to tell them about her incurable health condition that has symptoms of an autoimmune disease. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon. Welcome to Sports News.
Now, Croatia coach Zlatko Dalic has hailed his country's new generation of players just for making it to the World Cup quarterfinals, but skipper Luka Modric believes they can pull off a shock result against tournament favorites Brazil. The Croatians have followed their remarkable run to the final in Russia in 2018, but reaching the last 8 at this year's tournament in Qatar after qualifying from their group ahead of Belgium and then ousting Japan on penalties in the last 16. Only 4 of the players who started the defeat in the final against France 4 years ago, including Modric, were in the lineup at kickoff against Japan, while the emerging star of the new team is 20-year-old centre-back Josko Vardiol. On the flip side, Brazil coach Tite will be without first-choice left-back Alex Sandro, who has not fully recovered from injury and is doubtful for Friday's clash. Brazil were knocked out at the quarter-final stage to Belgium in the last World Cup in Russia. The South Americans hope they can go one step better this time and ensure they make it to the semi-finals and face the winner of Netherlands versus Argentina. Argentina coach Lionel Scaloni is optimistic Angel Di Maria and Rodrigo de Paul will be available for their World Cup quarterfinal against the Netherlands. Di Maria missed the last 16 win over Australia because of injury, and there are concerns over the fitness of midfielder de Paul, who has played every minute of the tournament in Qatar. Argentina faced the Netherlands on Friday in a repeat of their 2014 semi-final clash in Brazil, where the South Americans won on penalties following a goalless draw after 120 minutes. Meanwhile, Netherlands forward Memphis Depay says the team will be bidding to change the memories from their semi-final loss on penalties in 2014 when they faced Argentina again at the World Cup on Friday. One of the tournament's most storied rivalries will add another chapter in the quarterfinal clash at Lusail Stadium 8 years after Louis van Gaal's side were a shootout away from reaching the final in Brazil. We have to wait and see how all of that will play out, but that's a wrap on Sports News. I'm Victor Matthias. Thank you for watching. It's back to Amarachi with the wrap of the news at 10.
Thanks a lot, Victor. And the main news again. The House of Representatives today demanded the immediate suspension of the new policy on cash withdrawals as it invited the CBN governor, Godwin Emefiele, for explanation. The Apex Bank boss said the decision was aimed at strengthening the nation's economy. That's it on the news at 10 tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Good night.